guys, it's Natalie. I'm here to bring you a very late Medievalathon / July / part of August wrap up. Basically everything I've read since the last time I did a wrap up. So I have about 10 books to share with you and I can't wait to get into them. So let's just jump into it. Medievalathon was a readathon for July that was created by Holly Hart's Books, who I will link down in the description. It was a really fun readathon. I wish I could have gotten into it a little bit more, but I was sick a few times and there was just different chaotic things going on, but I did the best that I could do. Now, the first challenge in the Medievalathon was how many books you read. You had to read at least 6 books to get the crown, and if you watch my TBR, I kind of bragged that would be no big deal because I read so many books. But there was a time where I was thinking, oh my gosh, I might not make it to Queen because my reading was going very, very slow. But I did, like I said, I did make it to 10 books, so I did get to become a queen, so I guess I got that going for me, so that was pretty good. The next part of the Medievalathon was getting your crown and your knight gear and all these different things that correlated to different books. So why don't we go ahead and get into that? So the first thing I wanted to earn was my crown. In order to do that, you had to read a book where there was somebody who was pursuing the throne. And so many of you guys have been recommending Three Dark Crowns to me for so long, so that's the book I picked. I really, really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 5 stars. If you're not real familiar with this, really quickly, it's in this fantasy world, every generation or so, the queen gives birth to identical triplets who are raised separately in order to learn different kinds of magic. There's one who will go to a village where she's going to learn the magic of poison. There's one who's going to go to a village where she learns elemental magic, like how you can start fires and storms. And then one of them goes to a village where they learn naturalist magic, where you can make like flowers bloom and you can make animals, you know, do basically what you want to do. So they are raised separately, but then at the age of 16, they have to come together and fight to the death for the crown. And this is part of a series. This is the first book in a series. And like I said, I really enjoyed it. So many of you guys have been recommending it for so long. I'm so glad that I finally picked it up. And I now can say I have a crown to go along with being a queen, so thanks guys. Now the next thing I needed to earn was my helmet. Now I don't know how you wear a crown and a helmet at the same time. Maybe you alternate, I don't know. And I was going to do the Goblet of Fire because you needed to read a book that had a dragon on the cover, and at the time I had absolutely nothing except for the Goblet of Fire. But then in July, the LitJoy book was Shatter the Sky, and this book is all about dragons. The main character is Marin, and her girlfriend Kaya is taken by the Empire to join the ranks, I guess to fight for them. And so she goes on this long journey to find a dragon that she can use to rescue her girlfriend. And there's just dragons all throughout this book. And as I was reading it, I was going, why are there no dragons on the cover when this book is all about dragons? Until I remembered that LitJoy does reversible covers. So with the reversible cover, I do have a dragon on it. So I was able to use this to get my helmet. Like I said, how you wear a crown and a helmet, I don't know at the same time. But this was a really great book. Like I said, it's called Shatter the Sky. I gave it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. It's a new release. It came out at the very tail end of July, and I highly recommend it. I really do, especially if you like dragons. Now, in order to earn your breastplate, you had to read a shiny book, and I had a book picked out and I didn't get to it, but I did jump into another book, and when I was watching somebody else do their Medievalathon wrap up, they said you could actually use shiny letters. So I'm using the book Spin the Dawn to get my breastplate, and this was the Owl Crate July book. The main character in this book is Maya. She works as a seamstress for her father in his shop because he was once a very renowned tailor in their kingdom. But there was a really big war. She lost 2 of her brothers, and the one brother that remains is quite injured. So when a royal messenger shows up at their shop demanding the father go to compete to be the imperial tailor, she disguises herself as one of the brothers and she goes in his place. She ends up having to compete with 12 other tailors who are also very renowned in the kingdom, but she has something very special going for her. She has a pair of magic scissors. So that really works out well for her. And I'm not giving a lot away because that's just towards the beginning. She's in the competition and then we go on a very long journey. And I really, really enjoyed this book. I believe this also just came out, I'm not sure, the last couple months, but I really did enjoy it. And I think a lot of you guys would too. So check it out, Spin the Dawn. Now, in order to get your leggings, you had to find the biggest paperback book that you had on your shelf. And at the time, I was going to do The Last Magician, but once again, that's another book I did not get to. I'm still working on The Starless Sea. I'm about halfway through. I really am enjoying it, but since I'm only halfway through, I only have one legging. So I'm sure if I was out in the kingdom, I'd look quite strange. This is the latest book from Erin Morgenstern, who was the famous author of The Night Circus, which I know so many of you guys loved. And just to tell you a little bit about it, the main character is Zachary, who finds a special book that talks about his life. And of course, when you find a book that's talking about your life, you're thinking, how in the world can this book know about my life? And it ends up taking him on a long journey. I don't know exactly where the journey takes him because like I said, I'm only about halfway through, which is why I only have one legging. But I am enjoying it so far. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of savoring it a little bit. So that's why I only have half of it finished. Now, in order to get your boots, you had to pick a book that was yellowing, and I was going to read Midnight. And I did start it. I ended up DNFing it. It wasn't really a bad book. It just was not really grabbing my interest. So I was like, oh, what can I do in its place? I found out that Megan Miranda had yet another book that I did not know about, and I got it from the library, so it was a little bit older. So I was like, all right, that counts. That's yellow enough. And I'll be honest with you, I love Megan Miranda, but this was probably out of all the books I've read, the one I liked the least. The whole concept of soul print is the idea that reincarnation is true, science is able to prove that it is true, and like fingerprints, you have a soul print, meaning that with technology, you can go down, they'll take your soul print, and then they can pull up and say, hey, oh yeah, in 1958, your name was Betty Smith, and you worked as a baker, or I don't know, but you can go find out what your past lives were, not going back forever because this is new technology. But in this book, the main character is Alina Chase, and she's kind of kept in this island as a prisoner because her past self committed a lot of dangerous crimes, even though she has no memory of it. So she's basically being punished for something she has no memory of doing because it was her past life. And she ends up getting broken out and once again going on a long journey. I thought this book had so much potential because the synopsis sounded so great. It is one of those books that you might read it and be like, what are you talking about? This book is great. I don't know. I just felt they were just traveling, and I didn't think there was enough to the story for me. But I mean, it wasn't horrible. I gave it 3 stars. You might like it. It just wasn't my cup of tea, and I don't even drink tea. Next, I needed to earn my red cape. In order to do that, I needed to read a book with red on the cover. And I was desperate to read Heartless by Marissa Meyer, and I ended up giving this 5 stars. I ended up absolutely loving it. I heard a lot of people who are Marissa Meyer fans, this is the one book they don't like. I don't know why. I thought it was wonderful. This is basically the origin story of the Queen of Hearts. And I never read Alice in Wonderland. I know that's really sad. And I never watched the movie Alice in Wonderland. I've seen bits and pieces of some of the movies. I mean, I kind of have an idea of what it's about. But I really wish I had read that first, because I went back and I've been watching a lot of Alice in Wonderland now, and I'm going, oh, this referred to that, and there were so many things in this book where she was referring to Alice in Wonderland that I just did not get the connection. But we find out the Queen of Hearts was once a girl named Catherine who all she wanted was to bake and open up her own bakery. Her parents want her to marry the king. The king is quite taken with her, but she doesn't feel the same way back. She ends up falling in love with this guy named Jest, who's kind of like this new court jester that kind of comes into town. And I'm not going to tell you any more than, I mean, you know where the story is going, but it's an incredible journey. I think she did Wonderland really great now that I'm watching more Wonderland. It was just a fun book to be in, and it didn't make me cry, but, you know, it does have a sad ending, and I'm not giving anything away. It's the origin story of the Queen of Hearts. How could it not have a sad ending? The last book I read for the readathon, not the last book I read because I have a few more to show you, but the last one I read for the readathon was the Cactus. And the reason I read this one, it was the Reese Witherspoon book pick, so I had to. But in order to earn a sword, you had to have something sharp on the cover. And I told you guys you had to bear with me, but there is a little cactus, and we know cacti are prickly and sharp. So even though I might be walking around with only one legging, if people joke on me, I have a sword to protect myself, so that's a good thing. I've already talked about this book a lot, especially in the July Book Club Reese Witherspoon review, so if you want to hear more about that, I really suggest you watch that video, and also to hear about some other really great books. I actually talked about some of my favorite Reese Witherspoon Book Club picks in that video, and it's the video I made before this one, and I'll link that one as well, so please check it out if you're interested. And then I was able to read 3 more books that had nothing to do with the readathon. They're just books that I was interested in reading, and so I picked them up. Because I really liked the book One of Us is Lying, I picked up the second book by Karen McManus, which is Two Can Keep a Secret. This is a YA mystery thriller. In this book, the main character is Ellery. She ends up having to go stay with her grandmother for a bit because her mother has to go to rehab for abusing pills. And the grandmother lives in the hometown where her mother grew up. And this hometown is a bit crazy. And I don't mean in a good way, like in a bad way, like a bad crazy. Because in this town, Ellery's aunt went missing at the age of 17. 5 years ago, the homecoming queen was killed, and not soon after, when she gets there, there's somebody who leaves a message basically saying homecoming, is going to be bad, and basically warning people that there may be more deaths. So yeah, it was very crazy. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm trying to remember, what did I rate it? Oh, I rated this one 4 stars. I think that's what I rated the first one. They were both really, really great, because 4 stars is a very good rating for me. The next book I picked up and read was House of Salt and Sorrows. This was an arc that I got at BookCon that's been sitting on my bookshelf for a while. I finally picked it up and read. I only was going to read like the first chapter to kind of get a feel for it, but the next thing I know, I'm on like chapter 7, so that shows you how good it was. I would put this as a YA paranormal / fantasy. It's not high fantasy, so maybe paranormal / low fantasy. I don't know. I'm not really good sometimes at putting books in genres, and this is one of those books that's kind of hard to figure out which genre it belongs to, which I think is a good thing. I like it when books don't really fit in one specific genre. I think that means they have a very interesting story. In this book, our main character is Anna Lee. She is one of 12 sisters who live on this seaside manor that's kind of isolated. Sadly, 4 of her sisters have died, and each death becomes more and more mysterious. The village they live in even says that the family is cursed, and Anna Lee goes on I won't say a journey, but she goes about trying to figure out what's going on. She doesn't believe the last sister who died really died the way she did. She suspects foul play. Meanwhile, the girls are, being whisked away by these magic doors to these magical parties, and she's finding it a little bit suspicious as well. That's where the fantasy kind of comes in. But I really, really enjoyed this. I would say I would give this 4.5 stars, because it was more than 4 stars. It didn't quite hit 5 stars because it didn't really give me that hangover, but I really, really, really loved it, and I highly suggest it. And the last book I want to tell you about has got to be one of the craziest books I have ever read, and I am not at all exaggerating. This was crazy. It's called Behind Her Eyes, and I knew some of you actually, when you saw me do this in my TBR, were like, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it because it's so crazy. And man, you were not kidding. Was this book not crazy? And when I tell you the synopsis, which I'm going to in a minute, the synopsis doesn't make it sound that crazy. It's where the synopsis goes. It's where the story takes you, where you're going, what? And it's not in a bad way. I've read some mystery thrillers where they take you to weird places, and I'm like, oh, yeah, right, or this is just weird. No, this was a genius idea for how to end this book. So who is this? Sarah Penrose? She did an excellent job and has an excellent imagination. The main character in this is Louise. She has a very strange relationship with this married couple because she's having an affair with the husband, and then the wife befriends her, and she likes her so much that she continues the friendship. Obviously, they don't, the husband, she doesn't know that she's having an affair. It's not like they're having like a 3-way marriage. It's just really, really strange in that respect as well. And meanwhile, the husband is trying to convince her that his wife is crazy, not knowing that she's friends with her, and the wife is kind of trying to convince her that the husband is abusive, even though she doesn't know she's having an affair. I mean, it's just crazy, but that's not even the crazy part. You have to read to find out what the crazy part is, and I just cannot stress this enough. Crazy, crazy, crazy is the craziest, if not the craziest book I have ever read. So yeah, I highly recommend it if you're looking for crazy. So thank you again to Holly Hart's Books for the Medievalathon. I had so much fun. I don't know if I'm going to do an August wrap-up. I'm going to be doing the Monsterathon in September, which is going to keep me very busy. My probably next real big video will be my Monsterathon TBR, but there's also supposed to be different video challenges during the month. I do have other videos that will be before that will be coming up, but yeah, it's been a while since I filmed my reading. I have not been reading as much, but I'm jumping back in there, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. As always, I will follow you right back, and if you like the video, you are more than welcome to subscribe. So thank you so much, and I'll check you guys out in the next video.